The hardest part of the battle is coming out into the light with it.
Michelle Duggar is hiding her true self, and she doesn't want anyone to find out about it. She's always played the role of a perfect American mom, but that image is crumbling more and more these days as truths have been coming out about what she's really like. It's always been obvious that Michelle's parenting methods aren't the most common way to raise kids. For one, she has 19 kids as opposed to the regular numbers like 2 or maybe even 5 or 6. Dealing with that many kids at once definitely calls for some non-standard parenting methods. And what makes her parenting even less normal is the extreme religious practices that she and Jim Bob decided to follow in their family. But none of these things necessarily have to mean she's a bad parent. Actually, on the show, she really tried to make it look like she's the ideal Christian mom. But in reality, it's all been just a facade. And underneath it is what she's really like as a mom. One reason why we've finally been seeing what she's really like is because others have been telling their side of the story. And by others, I obviously mean her kids. But even without that, we could see her true colors when she was on TV. You could see it in the way she interacted with her younger kids, like Jennifer. If you look closely enough, it's like Michelle just has no relationship with her younger kids, which might be because she doesn't really do much of the raising on her own these days. Because ever since her older daughters grew up, she's apparently been pawning the younger kids off on them. I mean, Jana is basically a full-time nanny for her younger siblings at this point. She's Michelle's oldest daughter, but unlike a lot of her younger siblings, she never actually moved out of her parents' house. And in a different family, that might say more about Jana than it would about her parents. But this is the Duggars we're talking about. The thing is, Jana can't actually just move out on her own. She can only move out if she gets married. That's one of the rules of the Duggars' church, the IBLP. But unlike her younger sisters, she just didn't end up getting married, so she's stuck helping her parents out with housework. I'm sure Michelle finds it convenient to have a second set of hands ready to help with everything. And you might even ask the question whether it's really just a coincidence that Jana never got married, because if she left home, Michelle would have to start dealing with all the things Jana's been doing in the household. So it would only make sense if she wanted to keep her home for a while. And we all know that the Duggars' parents are very involved in their kids' courting and partnerships. Michelle and Jim Bob could have just made sure that none of Jana's potential matches would actually work out. But obviously, that's just speculation. We don't have any proof of that. Either way, Michelle hasn't been forming relationships with her younger kids as much as she probably should. When she talked to them on the show, you could see that she didn't even know what to say to them. Sometimes, it didn't even look like she was talking to her own kids. More like she just met them an hour ago. But refusing to take care of her younger kids and making Jana do it for herself is actually the least serious thing Michelle has been doing. The things she's done in the past, along with Jim Bob, are way more serious than this. Like the fact that they've allegedly been withholding money from at least some of their kids. Jill came forward with her story about this in the documentary Shiny Happy People, Duggar Family Secrets, that came out in June 2023. She said that she never got paid for being on the Duggars show, and that's both 19 Kids and Counting and the follow-up spinoff, Counting On. And obviously, she was on both of those shows a lot. She should be owed a huge amount of money for her contribution. Normally, with kids who are on reality TV, the network would keep the money safe and then release it to them when they become adults. But that's probably a newer rule that wasn't in place back when the Duggars started out their show. Either way, that doesn't seem to be what happened here, as Jill's husband, Derek Dillard, explained. Apparently, when he and Jill asked TLC about Jill's payment, they received the answer that the money was already paid out. And Derek said that TLC even told them where it went, which was obviously to the Duggar parents. He said that the officials just directed them right to Jim Bob, saying that they had already paid Jill's dad and she should ask him for the money. In the end, she had to fight Jim Bob tooth and nail to get at least some money out of him. She wrote a whole book about this experience and her other terrible experiences being a Duggar kid. It's called Counting the Costs, and it came out this past September. According to what she wrote, Jim Bob even allegedly tried to offer her and all of the other kids just $80,000 as a one-time payment. Now, that sounds like a lot of money, and in a lot of context, it definitely is. But Jill said that she just knew Jim Bob was was trying to pull something. That if he was offering them all $80,000, chances were they should be getting much more than that. She didn't agree to the $80,000 deal, and later she actually found out that Jim Bob made about $8 million from the shows, and he just never gave her any of it. And I honestly doubt it was a very different story with any of the other kids. Although Jill said that Jim Bob allegedly told her he actually did use to pay Josh for being on the show, he also supposedly said that he stopped after a while because, and I quote, it wasn't a good idea. I don't really see how paying your own kids the money that is rightfully theirs is not a good idea. But the fact that Josh got paid, at least at some point, while the girls apparently never did, just shows what the Duggar parents really care about. And sure, it's probably mostly Jim Bob handling all the money stuff, but you can't just deny that Michelle played her own part in all of it. She definitely had opportunities to at least try and convince Jim Bob to do things differently, but it really doesn't seem like she fought that hard for them. And obviously, talking about Josh brings me to what's probably the worst thing the Duggars have done to their kids, which is obviously allegedly covering up the horrible things that Josh was doing. At this point, we've all heard about it, and it's obviously a really difficult and painful topic for all of his victims. But in the early 2000s, Josh was doing inappropriate and horrible things to his sisters. And Jim Bob and Michelle allegedly knew all about it, even while that situation was still going on. And they still didn't do anything to help their daughters. Their main concern was instead to sweep everything under the rug. And once again, Michelle was right there. She could have stepped in and put a stop to what Josh was doing, but she did nothing of the sort. Instead, she covered it all up, allegedly. And years later, after the truth inevitably came out anyway, she even downplayed what happened. It all became public knowledge in 2015, which was terrible timing for the Duggar parents. The spin-off show, Counting On, was just about to start coming out, and Jim Bob and Michelle apparently felt like this was a scandal and it was most importantly threatening their show. So they did everything they could to make what Josh did seem like not a big deal at all. It doesn't seem like their main focus was ever on their daughters, who were the victims in the situation. Instead, they seemingly only cared about money. It's at least good to hear that Jill has finally been able to get at least some of that money back. But anyway, what do you guys think about all this? What do you think about Michelle as a mom? Can you think of other times she's been a terrible parent? Let me know in the comments below.